Welcome to our webinar entitled Expedite Lot Traceability Searches and Recalls. Today, we'll look at our software and how you can quickly and accurately track down product issues. Now, you may have issues with a vendor delivery, and we'll track that through WIP to customer shipments, or a customer may have an issue with their received shipment, and we'll backtrack that into a batch job, and if necessary, backtrack it to a supplier delivery. My name is John Garcia. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Batchmaster Software. Very happy to have JR Corkill, our Solutions Consultant. JR is going to be demoing our application. And the areas that he's going to demo is from the point of receiving through put away, and then the pulling and issuing of ingredients and packaging materials in the WIP, then the production of a finished good in WIP, it's put away, and then sales orders that will pick that product and ship it. Now, throughout this process, JR will show some paper documents that are barcoded, and he'll also show us how to execute these particular tasks using a smart tablet. At the end, we'll finish up with a lot traceability tool, which is graphical, and that'll tie everything all together for us. So let's start off with inbound activities. Here, we've got a vendor delivery and the receiving and put away tasks that one executes either with a barcode document or a mobile device, a smart tablet. We're going to go ahead and generate lot numbers against vendor manufacturing lot numbers. So we've got a cross reference association between our internal lot number and that vendor lot number. We'll capture that. We'll generate and affix a product label, and that could have a barcoded lot number in it, as well as expiration date, item information as well. And then we'll put that away, or we may divert it into QC for inspection. And of course, once we're in the inspection, we also want to capture and validate the lot number of that sample in QC. And then after it's been released, put it away into storage. Now in storage, we can execute a spot check, schedule a cycle count, as well as schedule inspections. And that's what we would call a stability test of volatile ingredients within the facility. And for these particular tasks, we're going to, again, capture and validate the lot number of that inventory in that location. Now, when we put away product, in addition to the product label, we can attach a pre-printed license or generate licenses if we're in a licensed environment to put that product away. We also can simply just add a product label and put that away by SKU and quantity to a location, or we could do multiple SKUs to multiple locations. In all these particular put away cases, again, the key here is to capture and validate the lot number. Show us how to set up a receiving lot number mask. And again, that's how to associate a vendor manufacturing lot number to our internally generated lot number. He'll address receiving a PO line item and generating product labels, and then go through the put away tasks, spot check, cycle count, and inspection tasks. So with that said, let me hand it over to Caleb.
Thanks, John. So the first thing we're going to look at on the purchasing side is how our system does its lot tracking, which is the basis for everything that we're doing, right? So the basis for this, whether it's on a raw material or a finished good or an intermediate, is via the batch masking feature that's down here. And it's found on the item master itself. Now, it can be a Julian date or a prefix or any combination. You can see that there's many different options for you here, and you'll set those, and that's going to be the numbering series that the system automatically suggests, which, if you need it, you can override. In this case, we're going to follow RM2007 brown sugar throughout the rest of this process, throughout this webinar. What you can also set here in the batch options screen is the expiration dates. So you can have the system automatically decide when a lot ought to expire. So you can set these as hard-coded or suggested directly from the item master. For a finished good, you can do something else also, and we'll talk about that when we get to that point. In addition to that, we can also decide what the lot allocation methodology is. So that's what the system's going to use to suggest what lot of this raw material needs to be allocated to various batches. And that it can be first in, first out, first expiry, first out, or last in, first out. In this case, I've chosen FIFO, first expiry, first out. Now let's go to WMS and receive this raw material. So we're going to receive based on a purchase order that was set in the system, which we're going to execute now on mobile. This is what that mobile screen looks like. It's tile-based, it's device agnostic. In this case, we're going to go to inbound, goods receipt PO, and we're simply going to enter the PO number or the vendor number, and you can see the PO that's already there and set up for you to receive against. In this case, we're expected to receive 50 pounds of brown sugar by this particular date. So this is what that screen looks like, and you're scheduled to receive it. So you can choose to receive it onto a pallet by simply scanning your pallet number. So every field on this can be barcoded and scanned using your Bluetooth scanner or something like that. You can scan it onto a pallet, or you can click Get LPN, sort of issue a pallet number to the lot that you're receiving, and then you can print that out, stick it on your pallet if required. But the important thing is, based on the setup that you saw, that the system is automatically generating a lot number, which is this one here. And it's also decided to receive it into the default bin, which is the receiving bin, and it's also auto-calculated this expiration date. Now, if I want it, I can also type in the vendor lot number, which I'm going to receive from the manufacturer. Right? So if I hit done, then I can automatically add this into my system and have the system print out the label. And the label will look like something like this. Now I can go back into this. If I'd done a partial, I can go back into the same PO and receive the remainder with the same process. I can manually override things as required. Like maybe the vendor lot number is different because the vendor is sending the same lot on 2 trucks or 2 different lots with the same vendor lot number. Either way, it's the same process, and I can print out the additional label. Now, when I get back to when I've received all of these lots, my warehouse manager might automatically get a notification that tells them some lots have arrived, they need to be in put away, right? So they can execute that transaction from the desktop, and what it's going to look like is a bin transfer, which is what you're seeing here. So we're sending 50 of these materials of RM 2007 to its final bin location, 01A101. But by and large, most of our customers would prefer to convert that into a put away list, print it out, send it to somebody out on the floor, and they can use this document to execute all of these same transactions on WMS. So that put away list that you just saw here has already got the bin locations and items and things on it, which I can scan off my document and select to move it from the receiving bin to this final location. Now that I can execute using the put away transaction list and hit transfer items, and you can see all of these things are in here. Select the right label. Oh, sorry. There we go. And I can scan off the receiving bin, put the lot numbers in there. That's the one I want to receive, transfer quantity, and done. And then that's done. That moves the inventory from the receiving bin into the next location, whether that's for a quarantine or something else. But maybe what you want to do is also just do a similar stock inquiry, right? You want to find out where all of these lots live right now. So I can do that using the stock inquiry, or I can do it from the spot count screen. In this case, let's do it through the stock inquiry. This tells me that I have on hand 885 pounds. Let's figure out where that is. So right now it's in all of these different locations. And you can see as I drill down, I can tell the lot numbers that are in those locations, how much is on hand, whether that happens to be on a pallet, what the expiration dates are, what the lot statuses are, container numbers, and so on. So this is one easy way for you to just go ahead and figure out where your inventory is by lot number. Now, in addition to that, you might decide to do a spot count. You want to reduce the inventory amounts in some cases or increase it depending on. So that you can, this tells you all of the historical locations. It tells you where things are, what the expiration date is, similar to what you saw in the stock inquiry, but it's also got some of that historical information. I can reduce the quantity. So if I want to reduce it by 5 and say I've only got 45 left, and I can assign a reason code against it and submit, and then the difference then gets posted into a variance account. Now, you might also be asked to execute a cycle count. Now, a cycle count is going to adjust some of these quantities also, and that's based on a recommendation that the system provides. Now that you're going to set a cycle code, and now the cycle count can be done on the item, on the item group, on a preferred vendor, on certain warehouses only, and also by bin location. So you can have a cycle count applied to a bin location for a particular type of item. The system is going to make that recommendation to you in the form of an inventory counting request. So a counting transaction is generated as a result. And that looks something like this. So in this case, I've been asked to cycle count these 2 bin locations for these particular lots, which I can then execute from inventory counting. So I'll select the appropriate document number, select the right warehouse, put in, I can scan in the appropriate item code. And I'll pick the appropriate lot as you saw on that, put in the quantity counted, and you're able to adjust the quantity up or down. And again, here also the difference goes to a variance account. So these are the kinds of inventory transactions you can do as you're receiving these items. But of course, there might also be some quality and inspection tests that you might do when you receive. So let's move back to desktop and take a look at the quality dashboard. So this is what the quality dashboard looks like, and you can see all of the open tests. So you can see here that we are able to do production, purchase, inventory, stability, sales, QCs, all directly from this tab. And this is where I'm able to assign various tests to these particular users. So we can scroll to the right, assign test to whichever user I want to assign it to, and then they get a notification and they go ahead and do that. You can also have stability tests that need to be done. So you can see all of the items and lots that need stability tests that you should be able to execute out on the floor. And that's what those are. Right? So you can check those off, generate those orders, and the system will generate these stability orders, which you can then execute directly from the system. So let's do that. Out of here. Let's go to quality control. Stability tests are ST, so I'm going to go to the last one. So I can see my upper and lower control limits. I can execute that from here. So I'm expecting a value of around 18, but it should generally be within 15 to 21. These can be pass-fail, alphanumeric, numeric. Result. I hit OK. And I hit submit, and the test record is automatically saved. Let's go back to the stability test. So this stability test, what that does when you execute it out on the floor is it puts it into status in progress. Quality control will get a notification. They are going to validate it by hitting the evaluate QC, which changes the status of this test to QC completed. That does not, however, change the lot status. Lot status can then be changed by QA only, or QC if you give them the appropriate rights, which then changes QA approval, changes the lot status from quarantine to released. So that's pretty much all of the transactions you're going to do on the receiving side, and that concludes this section for me. Back to you, John.
Thank you. Now we've gone ahead and put away the ingredients in storage as well as raw materials, the packaging materials in inventory as well. And now we're going to go ahead and go through the batch order process. We're going to create a batch ticket. And in that batch ticket, we're going to allocate the best inventory for that particular job. And we're going to allocate it by lot number. And in that particular case, we're going to generate product issues, inventory issue tasks. We're going to go ahead and identify the item, the location, the lot number. We're going to pull it from that location, and we're going to pull it into a location next to the production line. That might be a staging location right next to a piece of equipment. Then, once it's there, we will go ahead and issue that inventory, the ingredients or the raw material, to that particular process cell. And then it's within WIP now. So we go through the make and the fill processes. And at the end, we're going to produce some yield of finished good. We can then go ahead and generate and affix a product label to that as well. And that will have a lot number. And that lot number is an internally generated lot number for that finished good. And we will then issue a number of put away tasks, and that could be on a barcoded document. And it will also be available to execute on the mobile device. And we'll go ahead and capture and validate that lot number information as we pick it up and put it away into the designated storage locations. Very similarly to the ingredients and packaging materials that we saw during the inbound process, we also can go ahead and do spot checks, cycle counts, and inspection plans against those finished goods in inventory. And naturally will capture and validate that lot number information. Now, one of the key things to lot traceability, searches and recalls, is to maintain that association between raw material lot numbers to finished goods lot numbers. Then it's putting away that product in various methods. So with that said, he'll show us how to set up a lot number mask for finished goods coming out of WIP. We'll look at a batch job, specifically the lot allocation of the best inventory for the job. We'll do a raw materials issue, and that's again to the ingredients and to the packaging materials. And then out of WIP, once we have a yield, we'll go ahead and identify those finished goods and we'll put those away. And then finally, we'll look at the transaction that keeps that association between a finished good lot number and its raw material lot numbers, ingredients, and packaging materials. All right, over to you, Caleb.
Thanks, John. So production, it begins with making sure that the lot masking for the finished good item that we're going to look at is set up correctly. In this case, we're going to look at the apple muffins 4-ounce cup. Now, it's using a similar lot masking as you saw with the raw material, but you might choose to use a different masking system entirely. So a different numbering series, it says FG1706. Right? So you can also set up for, particularly for finished goods, you might want to do the expiration date calculation based on the expiration of its nearest raw material component. So if this finished good is made with a raw material lot that's about to expire, the finished goods raw material expiration date will also be closer. So if you make it with raw materials that have expiration dates that are far out, the finished good will also have that. Or you can just use a standard expiration dates or manually enter your own as required. This is also where you're going to decide the batch serial issue method. In this case, I've again chosen FIFO, first expiry, first out. All of that can be set up directly from the item master. That's that. Let's take a look at a batch ticket. Right? So a batch ticket is taking everything based on what's in the formula and bill of materials, which we covered in a previous webinar, and it's generated an expected batch weight, an expected theoretical density, schedule start dates, end dates, all of that stuff. And in the formula tab, you can also see the raw materials and boilerplates, the manufacturing instructions that were on that formula for this particular job. Right? And the batch number is generated up top. And from the formula, you can also tell what process cell, how long it's supposed to run, and so on. And also the quantities required of all of these raw materials. The first thing you might choose to do at this stage is you might want to size the batch. Because all of the requirements come off of the formula / bill of materials, you can size it up or down based on a finished goods requirement. So if you wanted, instead of making 1,000 units, if you wanted to make 2,000 units, and you just wanted the system to automatically adjust the raw material quantities, you can do that from here. Or you can size it down, because if you've got a material shortage on salt, right? So if you've got the kosher salt, which you can see behind you, RM1003, if there's not enough of that, you can size it down based on that availability instead. And the system will adjust the quantities accordingly. And you can do this before you print the batch ticket and set it out for the guys out on the floor. And once you've done all of that, you might choose to allocate it. You might choose to allocate a certain number of raw material lots to this particular job. And the system is going to recommend its allocations based on FIFO or FIFO or LIFO or whatever it is that you set in the item master. So in this case, you can see everything that was on that formula, including the quantities that are required. I'm going to size this the column width so you can see more clearly. So you can see how much is required, how much is available, all of that directly from one screen. And at the bottom, you can see all of the various lots of this particular item that are available. And the system is going to recommend, because you've chosen first expiry, first out, so it's going to recommend you take all of this particular lot and then some of this lot. So you can see all of those. And if you wanted to manually adjust that and not choose what the system wants you to do, you can uncheck and choose the appropriate amounts. But if you're happy with everything, you're simply going to hit auto select, and then you're going to hit update. And what that is going to do is it's going to take those lots and allocate it to that particular batch. And that's going to be what becomes suggested when you start picking for this. So it's important to remember that simply allocating the lot does not move that into WIP. This is just saying, your production planner is just saying, these are lots that I would like to use for this job. You can create your pick list based on that, your production pick list, but only when you issue it out will it become issued to WIP. So let's take a look at the production pick list that I just talked about. So it looks something like this. It's going to tell you where the lots are that you're going to pick, how much is on hand, where you put it to, and finally where you're going to stage it to. So if you've got a staging area based process, it's pretty straightforward. You're going to select the pick list that was generated from the desktop. And in this case, it's number 15. And you can see it's just asking you to pick the flour and the brown sugar. And it can be a hard or soft allocation based on what your company's setup is. So you can only pick what's been hard allocated to this lot or not. And it's telling you to pick this lot from this bin and then move it to the stage bin. So let's do that. All right, so it's asking you, it's giving you these suggestions. So we're going to go into that receiving bin and move 170602 to this quantity. We're going to pick it, and then the system's going to move you to the next lot. And that's from Hay101, that particular lot. There we go, and we're ready to pick. And once we've picked, we can stage it. But what that means is you're going to move it from the places that you picked it from, receiving in the A101, into the staging area, from where you will then move it to WIP. So behind the scenes, what the system is executing is an inventory transfer, is a bin transfer. Now, we know some of our customers don't have this allocate and stage process and would just prefer to print out a batch ticket and use that to run their process from desktop as well. In that case, issuing looks very similar to the allocation screen, which is what we're going to do here. We're going to hit issue batch simply by right-clicking, and you're going to see the exact same thing you saw in allocation. Now, if you've taken all the system's recommendations on which ones were picked, then you can simply hit auto select. But if you want to use a non-standard lot or something, you could select that, and that would be what the system issues out into WIP. So I'm going to hit auto select, and then once I've auto selected and the system's ready, I'm going to hit issue. And what that's done is it's taken that status from allocated directly into issued. And this is the stage at which it goes into WIP. And as a result of doing that, the status of the batch itself has changed to issued, and these raw materials are now in WIP. You can choose to receive the finished goods on desktop too if you need, but I'd like to show you how to do that on mobile. So let's switch to that. That's in the MES production area, manufacturing execution. So you can see that the electronic batch ticket can be called up from here. I'm going to put in the batch number, and I can see that this is the start date, end date, issued. Now I can choose to issue the raw materials from here too if I wanted, but I've done that already on desktop. So I'm just going to receive it. And so now here, it's automatically generated the lot numbers based on the batch masking that you previously saw. You've also got, I haven't chosen to have an expiration date, so you can manually enter that or have the system auto-calculate that. You can receive it onto a pallet. Again, this you can scan, or you can have the system automatically generate that. You can choose to receive in full. So if you're expecting to receive 1,000, so that's what's open. This is how much is produced and this is how much is saved. So you can choose to receive a partial and close it out. So let's say you've only made 900. You can hit 900 and hit submit, and that's what the system accepts as being your total quantity produced, as your yield. You can also choose to receive in partials over time. So at the top of the hour, I'm going to receive 100. Then I hit save. At the top of the next hour, I'm going to hit receive another 100. Hit save, save, save until I hit 1,000 or 900 or whatever it is that you're going to require. But in this case, I'm not going to do any of that. I can simply just hit submit. And then it's going to ask me if I would like to print out the labels, and then I just do that. And the labels look, of course, something like this. Now I'm going to simply refresh this particular batch ticket. Right now it's in status issued. And now when I refresh it, it should move to status part closed because it's acknowledging that I've completed all of the tasks on the finished good receipt. Now, if I were to right click and hit production goods transaction report, this was going to tell me all of the lots that were issued, what status those lots were in, fit column width again, what status those lots were in, so QC pass, all, etc., how much I issued out, and how much I received back in, what container, what pallet I received it in, what lot numbers, what bins, also costs. So it's going to take the unit price system that is reflected in the journal entry, multiplied by the amount of raw materials or finished goods that were issued or received, and it's going to give you this amount at the end. This is the basis for lot costing. So the system is not just keeping track of what lot numbers get used, but what the costs are at each step of the transaction. So if you've got a variance as a result of a downtime on the line or something like that, or you issued less or more, all of those results are recorded here along with those appropriate lot numbers. And that's what's giving you the final and accurate cost at each step, whether that's in receipt or even in production. And that's it from me. Thank you. And back to you, John.
Well, now he showed us that we've gone ahead and stored the finished goods in the warehouse and that could be full pallets, less than full pallets, cartons, cases. And we're going to look at sales order fulfillment process. We could look at one sales order and do a strict order picking for that one particular sales order, or we may want to group sales orders together, perhaps either by the small parcel, FedEx or UPS for the day, or an LTL, a customer delivery date. Those are the various criteria in which we can group sales orders together. And in both cases, a single order or multiple or group of orders, we'll go ahead and we'll allocate the best inventory for those orders by lot number, of course, and then we'll generate the pick tasks to the floor, and they'll go out and pick the appropriate inventory and bring it to the staging area in the shipping area. In this particular case, a lot of times small parcel will just pick up their packages in their designated area. So we may just want to pick and ship it. In other cases, like an LTL or full truckload, we may want to pick it and stage it and then do an additional step of actually loading and shipping that product into the truck itself. Of course, in all these particular tasks, whether we use barcoded documents or the smart tablet, the picking process and the shipping process will capture and validate the lot numbers. So Caleb's going to show us again the sales order and what a pick wave might look at, and that's a group of sales orders, the lot allocation against that, the generation of the pick tasks, execute the pick tasks, as well as executing the ship tasks. All right, over to you again, Caleb.
Thanks, John. So sales delivery portion of the webinar begins with a sales order, right? So this sales order, number 1065, is for 50 units of these apple muffins, which we've been following throughout this webinar, which we would like to deliver. Now, since every document in our system is intended to tie into the next logical document, for that kind of end-to-end traceability, we need to make sure that it includes a sales order. Now, I can do the delivery on desktop if I wanted to by hitting the copy to feature down here and selecting delivery, which generates that delivery document that is tied, you can see here, based on sales order 1065 to that sales order. And I can hit add, and that is going to ask me to allocate the appropriate lots. I can manually allocate some of this. So if I can just type in 50, hit that arrow. Or I can hit auto select if I'm happy with the FIFO, FIFO, LIFO allocation that's set up in the item master. But this is probably not how you're going to be doing this. You don't want to be delivering your finished goods directly out of desktop. Or maybe you do. If you do, this is the way you do it. But most of you are going to want to use a pick list. Now, the pick list can be generated directly off of that sales order, simply by right-clicking on the sales order, hitting Generate Pick List. And that tells you details about the order itself, how much is required, how much is available to release. And based on this available to release, it's selected a fulfillment percentage. So it's saying 100% of this order can be fulfilled based on the inventory that we have right now. And here's what that pick list would look like when you generate it. But by and large, most of you are going to want to pick multiple orders at the same time based on certain criteria. In that case, I'm going to use the Pick Pack Manager. So I can pick to a particular warehouse or a posting date range or a customer or item or even a fulfillment percentage. So only pick orders for whom I'm able to fulfill 80% or more. So if that's not enough, I can pick by any of these other user-defined fields that I can use to filter it down even more narrowly. You can also then sort based on the delivery date, based on the customer priority, the customer number, warehouse document number, etc., just to make sure the system understands the logic it has to use in order to generate those pick lists for you. But when you're ready, you're going to hit OK. And that's going to give you all of the various orders, including when they're due, and how much is available to release, how much is on the document, and how much you can fulfill. So this particular order, if you pick all of these, you will not be able to fulfill it. So it's showing up with fulfillment percentage 0. So let's just pick these two. And so I'm going to pick multiple at the same time, which is most likely your process. And once I've done, I can hit update, and then I can release it to the pick list, which brings up the pick list generation wizard. This tells me how I want the pick list to be organized. Am I picking to a particular warehouse location? So am I only picking things from one area or not? Am I trying to group the pick list by customer, by item group, by item? How do I want to split the pick list, right? So what am I optimizing for? Do I want the picker to be going in alphabetical order of the bin numbers? So they pick A1, then they pick A2, they pick A3. Something else. Do I want them to go first to the bin with the most items, and that minimizes their walking, so descending, or do I want them to go to the bins with the least items, basically clear out inventory and maximize bin efficiency with ascending, or just do a straight FIFO? That logic is entirely up to you and your process, but whatever it is, we can support it. Once you have it, you have a pick list, and you can assign it to a particular user, hit generate, and then you can pick it on mobile, which is what we're going to do. So this is the outbound pick list area. You can do the deliveries, purchase returns, and pick lists from here. I'm going to select the pick list that we just generated. This is for those apple muffins. And it's telling me what bin I have been allocated. Pick from here. The lot I'm picking is 6. I can pick all or partial, right? So I can pick it. And once I've picked it, it goes into the status picked. So it's moved from release to picked. Now from here, based on what my process is, there's a few things you can do. Do I want to stage it? Which is to say, do I want to move this inventory that I've picked to a staging area for pickup by an LTL? Or do I want to automatically generate that delivery document if my picker is actually the one who's also getting it out the door? So that's what these buttons here do. You could have a single stage delivery or a single stage delivery or a multi-step stage in a staging area, then deliver process. Whatever it is, you'll be doing it under the same screen. And once that item has been delivered, I'll pick lines to be delivered, which I'm going to do. Then if I go onto desktop and look at, close all of this, go to a delivery document. I'm going to go to the last one so we can see what we just generated. And if I look at the relationship map, you can see in the remarks that it's based on who did the picking, based on the pick list, sales order, etc. And I can see that the sales order has been tied to the pick list. And that's that kind of end-to-end traceability that you get with the system. All right, now back to you, John.
Thanks, Caleb. Well, now we've gone ahead and we've shipped out all those customer orders, and we may find the case of a customer complaint. Customer has a particular issue, so we want to track down his particular shipment, the item that he has an issue with, the lot number for it, and we're going to backtrack it into the batch job in which it was produced. Then if we decide that there's issues in the process itself, perhaps there's issues with some of the ingredients or packaging materials, we can backtrack it to that specific vendor delivery. Now we may have a vendor issue with one of their delivered products, so we'll track it from receiving the put away, from storage into WIP, and then look at the finished goods that were produced and the finished goods that were shipped to the various customers. In all those particular cases, we can generate recall letters to the customers, and we can do some recall notices as well to the vendors. Now, anywhere within this, if we have a production issue, we can use this graphical tool that we're going to show you to look in a bi-directional way, as well as dive down deep into the quality control tests that were done through this whole entire process. So it's important to recognize that you need to have comprehensive lot management functionality to be able to search and recall suspect products in a matter of minutes. All these various activities, again, receiving put away, production, picking, shipping, and how we capture, validate that lot number using paper documents and the mobile device. So let's have a look at the graphical lot traceability tool. Let me go ahead and hand it back over to Caleb.
Thanks, John. So now, because we have that end-to-end traceability baked in, as John was saying, we always know what lots went out to what customer, right? So 6 months down the line or a year down the line, if a complaint comes in, and in this case comes in in 2019 for a lot that went out in 2018, simply by putting in the order number and the item name, you can find out what lots went out in that order. In this case, it was Apple Muffins lot 1802, et cetera, et cetera. You can also view the related complaints to figure out if it's a problematic customer, if it's a problematic item, it's a problematic lot. You can store attachments, put in more information about the investigation, capture action taken, and other steps, all of which we discussed in more detail in the quality webinar. But for now, our focus is on this particular lot, 180200045 of Apple Muffins. Right, so let's bring up the lot traceability dashboard. The lot traceability dashboard allows me to do backwards and forwards traceability. That means a lot explosion, which is trace it down from a finished good to the raw material, or where used, which is a trace a raw material right down to all the finished goods it went into, right? So you can then look at where it was produced, how much is on hand, what the release status is, what the QC was, what the vendor lot numbers are, and so on. So I'm going to select the lots here for that particular material. Hit sale, so it's all nodal, right? So I can zoom in and out using my scroll mouse wheel, or I can hit this plus and I can expand it out. And I can see all of the various raw materials and jobs that resulted. So this is a raw material, PK1005. If I expand it, I can get to the invoice that generated this raw material. So I can trace it out as much as I want. And you can see the status up here. It's going to expand a lot as I go through this. Anyways, what it does is it shows you for every stage what happened, how much of it was received, released, etc., what status, what the QCs were. All of this allows you to really go end to end through your entire process. You can even run a relationship map from the goods receipt to see the PO and the payment. So you've got both the production and the purchasing sales process tied together. Now I can also do this whole process in reverse using the where used. Now, if I don't want to see all of this in graphical form, I want to see all of it in a grid view, then I can just go into the grid view up here, and I can export that grid into Excel or PDF as required. But let's take a look at one of those raw materials. Let's look at that brown sugar that we've been following this entire way. RM 2007, brown sugar. Let's see all of the various lots that we have. I hit process, and now it's going to tell me everything that so I can see what PO resulted in this particular lot. In this case, it's from Northern Farms, and I can expand it out. Went into the apple muffins, into 2 different lots of apple muffins, and I can trace it down all the way to all of the customers that this went out to. So this allows you to track customer sale all the way from sale to purchase the raw materials, and it's all about lot control, right? You can see all your QC steps. This is great for mock recalls, audits, and even, God forbid, an actual recall. This allows me to also auto-generate a lot recall report simply by putting in some rudimentary information. So as long as you know the lot numbers and the item codes, you can always who it went to, and generate your lot recall letters in bulk. Because we know that you can have the system auto-generate and send these lot recall letters with all of the relevant information. So taking down your mock recall process from a matter of days to a matter of minutes. So that brings me to the end of everything I had to show you guys on this particular webinar. Over to you, John.
Well, I hope you can see that lot traceability and recall really depends on the comprehensive lot management capabilities within the manufacturing and your warehousing processes. As you can see, lot traceability really goes from inbound through manufacturing to outbound. We can execute that with mobile warehousing on the smart devices. Obviously, when you're using a mobile device, you're capturing the worker's ID, so CFR11, and you are also capturing, validating the lot number on the spot rather than using paper and bringing that over to a workstation and then scanning that in at that point. So there's obvious benefits in using the mobile warehousing when it comes to lot traceability and recall. For more information about our end-to-end ERP solution or our add-on manufacturing app for leading financials, you can visit our website or simply email me. Thanks so much.